Hey there, guys. Welcome to a match debrief ahead of Manchester City and also Aston Villa, where we can now discuss internally what's going off at Leeds, what's to come, and obviously we've got a big game ahead at the weekend. It's going to be a very difficult one, I'm going to say. Daniel Farke is under extreme pressure, and can he and can't he come through it unscathed? We'll be able to find out very shortly. Welcome to obviously the first one for me in a long time on LEFC News uh, as we do a live today. So ahead of Manchester City, we've got a couple of things to talk about. Obviously, Sean Longstaff is now injured. He's going to be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks with a calf strain. And then we've got plenty of talking points to go through, such as Brendan Aronson in the team. That's causing a lot of debate. Section of the crowd at Ellen Road against Aston Villa jeering for Daniel Farke to leave Leeds United. And not only that, telling him he doesn't know what he's doing. How much of that do you agree with? Please let me know in the comment section below. So just starting a bit of a quick review on Aston Villa. I thought it was a really good start to the game. I thought the first 45 minutes, Leeds were all over Villa. They didn't know what had hit them. They were aggressive. They were on the front foot. They were playing some really good football. John McGinn couldn't quite find, the passes to put into play, and I thought we handled him extremely well. Morgan Rogers, obviously, he wasn't really in the game at this point, and I felt that Leeds' press was matching Aston Villa's by a country mile. The midfield was a lot better. In recent weeks, I felt like the commitment levels weren't as good as what they were on Sunday, and obviously goalkeeper Lucas Perry has come in for a large section of criticism, which we'll get into. So, first of all, I must say the real talking point for me was the second half in how Leeds came out. We completely switched off from the word go. They brought on two subs. Unai Emery identified that obviously on the left-hand side for Leeds, where Gabriel Goodmanson plays, there were lots of gaps appearing, as we've seen in previous games. And it was a cluster of errors, really, because we were leaving far too many gaps down that side. We saw, Noah Okafor didn't quite seem up for it to me, especially come the second half. It just wasn't his game, and we had players obviously that weren't tracking back in those moments. And I felt in the last 5 minutes of the first half, we just looked a little bit jaded. And I felt a sub had to come sooner rather than later in the second half. And unfortunately for us, they acted quicker. The first thing I'd have been saying to the lads was giving them plenty of praise. It was a fantastic first half. But having said that, the second half was always going to be difficult. A top-class manager in Unai Emery, who's made a fantastic impact at Aston Villa. They'd obviously not had a great start to the season. They couldn't really score many goals. But obviously now they're firing and they're back in the top four, where in that sort of area I'd expect them to finish. But Leeds more than matched them first half. I just felt that, it was probably a lack of experience at this level why Leeds didn't manage to see out the match with at least a point. And again, the errors that came, you just can't do that at this level. The likes of Morgan Rogers and Mallon linking up really well early on in the second half. And Daniel just stood there like most games and acts, unfortunately, a bit too reactive rather than acting proactive. You've seen likes of Laji Ramazani go. Manor Solomon, I would have loved back at the club. We didn't quite get that one off. And then it leaves you with Jack Harrison and Brendan Aronson on the wings. Are they good enough? Not in my opinion. I think that there's a lot of areas in the team that could be addressed. We needed a striker and a number 10 in the summer. We failed to get that. And unfortunately, Leeds now are in a very precarious position because Daniel likes to go on about statistics. But unfortunately, in-game, we're dropping far too many points. And we had these discussions last time we were in the Premier League that performances were, on the whole, not too bad for large periods of the season. But we weren't picking the points up. And in my opinion, it's the same process again. I feel we're a little bit of a soft touch at times. And until things start to improve on that side of things and being a little bit more clever in game. I feel like the Premier League standards they've slightly gone down, in my opinion. I don't think the league's actually as good as what it used to be. I think there's times where I think quality isn't quite up to as good a standard as when I've seen it in previous years. And that's why I still feel Leeds do have a chance of staying up, but it's all on January now. You look at the goalkeeper situation and the players we've brought in. If we digress that right now, you're looking at a £15 million goalkeeper in Lucas Perry, who came in from Lyon, had great remarks. His manager, who I think who was Paolo Francesca, I could be wrong, but said that it was basically a god for them. You looked at the XG that was prevented, that Lucas Perry helped Lyon achieve last season. I think it was like times 6.39, which is really good. But he's come to Leeds and he's had a horror start. There's no doubt about it. His distribution isn't too bad, but with his feet, he can't use that, which is why having Calvert-Lewin in this situation where he can't score, 100% guarantee that he'll probably end on about 5 goals this season if he stays fit. But at the end of the day, we've got an outlet so he can throw long. He's better at throwing than kicking. And it's something that I've not understood so far this season, why we're now trying to revert back to what we tried to do before in terms of playing out from the back and teams just constantly pressing on top of us. And for me, we have to avoid that. We have to start to play a bit longer, try and get at them that way, and try and stretch teams a little bit more than what we have been doing. Unfortunately, having said all that, do I think we've got the quality to do that? I'm not so sure right now. I think Daniel has to now be flexible within the team. They have to try and change a couple of positions, and whatever warrants a win, whatever warrants to try and get some points on the table, we have to start doing very soon rather than later. Because Daniel said we're aiming for a point per game. That will soon go out the window when we're in these precarious positions. I just don't believe, though, that right now, until we get to January, we're going to pick up a great deal of points. I'm looking at Brentford coming up. Crystal Palace is a really tough game. And obviously, we've got Sunderland. So, that's a team that finished 24 points below Leeds last season and have managed to recruit and to bring in some really top players. And they are showing that on the pitch now. That they don't just play good football, tic-tac. They're flexible within their within analysis that they do for the team and with the tactical side of it. Regis Lebris has adapted really well with Sunderland, and he's impressed me completely. Even though they've spent 160 million in the market, we spent 100 million. We've brought in Lucas Perry on 15. We've brought in Sebastian Bornau, who's made one appearance in the League Cup against Sheffield Wednesday, and that was another 5 million fee. Jacques Biol looks far too one-dimensional, in my opinion. I don't think, it suited him playing on the left side of defence, and he didn't really look like, you wouldn't believe he was an international for either, I think it's either Slovenia or Slovakia, because he's just not playing well for Leeds when he has come in. And there looks a real lack of cohesion between him and Joe Rodon. And then it leaves you in a position where you're thinking to yourself, well, you're going to have to bring in Pascal Strout, who is, for me, a bottom half Premier League defender. I know things can't change straight away, and I get that when you make these acquisitions that we've brought in. Having said that, though, we've wasted a lot of money already. Like I said to you, 15 on Perry, 5 on Bornau, another 15 on Biol. And I'm looking at the recruitment side of things, and it looks a disaster. To put the trust in Adam Underwood, for me, was a completely bad move. You can see that he's got a great experience with the academy. He's done really well with Leeds. But again, what goods was it letting him take all the backlash off the transfer window? And then letting basically not giving him the support that he needs, in my opinion, to push on. And in terms of pull for players, we failed on so many signings, such as Siddiqui that was linked, such as Diarra that was linked, that we did a large amount of homework on that played at Strasbourg. And again, we didn't manage to get them over the line. And it could be a variety of reasons. Money we've tried to pay out. We've tried to do it on the cheap. It showed with Sean Longstaff, we put 4 bids in for him and we managed to get him for 12 million. Now, to me, that's not good enough. We should have had him done pretty quickly, and it took so long. And again, you don't have the time in the transfer window to really to do these sort of things, and you've got to get things moving. And it's been an Achilles heel of Leeds' for many years, this, but more now than ever when you've got the American owners who have the American dream, if you like. We talk about the stadium. That's had a bit of a back step now. There's possible they're having to reconsider certain things for the council, and everything just seems to take longer and longer. We've already put 10 million in place for the infrastructure of the ground to be built back up, and for the footings, but it always feels like Leeds are a step behind where they need to be, and it's not really good. Makes us look amateurish at times. Parag continues to talk about that he can do contracts in his sleep. Well, unfortunately for Parag, this is a message for him that we now need to step out of that. We can't take such a casual approach. It undermines what we're trying to achieve at Leeds United. You look at they've bought Rangers now, so Andrew Kavanagh, the chairman, and Parag's the vice chairman, and I think it's too much. I think it's far too much to take on. Two massive football clubs that can't be almost messed around with. They've now, Andrew and Parag have had discussions. They've obviously got rid of Kevin Thelwell, who was the director of football, and Patrick Stewart, the sporting director up at Ibrox, and they've also got rid of a manager in Russell Martin this season. So from, let's say, July to November, they've had massive issues in a league that is not as competitive this season. And it's something that obviously they're having to address now, which is ridiculous. Within that amount of time, they've not learned the lessons, and they're having to put things right under Danny Roll, who again is a good manager, but it just proves that it was too much to take on a newly promoted Premier League club where you should be investing every ounce of effort, energy, commitment into. And to think it was going to be, clearly to me, it looks like it was going to be an easy ride for Parag to just leave it with basically Adam, who's got all the keys, and Farke to the club right now. It just shows what a shambles it's actually been. And I do worry for Leeds coming up. We've got a really tough set of fixtures, obviously, which we're going to speak about with Manchester City coming on the horizon. Then we've got Chelsea midweek. Then we've got Liverpool. So the amount of energy that's going to be taken out of the players is going to be a lot. How flexible is Daniel going to be is another question. Doesn't help already that we've got Anton Stack out, who has to now follow concussion protocols, so he can't play for the next one. Then you've got Sean Longstaff out for 4 to 6 weeks. And then people were obviously complaining that the substitute of Al Tanaka was playing very well, but was very close to getting sent off in the middle of the pitch in the second half. And had Villa have not had that advantage, he would have been sent off, as the fourth official had spoken to Daniel about. So had he not brought AO off, you're then looking at the factors of we potentially don't have more than 2 midfielders available in Ampadu and Gruev, which at the best of times, I believe Ampadu is a solid player. He can be at times suitable for Leeds in the midfield area, but he's not creative. He's very much a sideways passing player, and he can lose focus. And then Elia Groove, he's not played much this season. I don't think he's good enough. I think he was a squad player in the Championship, and it's going to take a massive amount of energy and focus, and to produce some sort of quality along with a bit of luck for Leeds to get anything out of the Man City game. For me, I don't like going into games already beaten, but I find it very difficult where to see the goals are going to come from. How he's going to set up, I think he should set up with a 5 at the back, stay solid, aim. I don't want to say aim for the point, but stay in the game for at least the first 20 minutes. Give yourself a chance. And we can't be making any mistakes against a team like them. They've made a boatload of changes in midweek. Obviously, against in the Champions League, I can't remember which team they've played now because I'm focused on Leeds that much. It's a difficult one to watch. But Daniel Farke seems to think he's got a plan to stop Haaland. Well, after watching us against Nottingham Forest get beat 3-1, after watching us get beat 3-0 against Brighton, how can I trust, or anybody, one of us that are watching, trust what Daniel's saying? I just think a lot of it's just hoaxy pokesy stuff. I'm not a great believer in what he's trying to achieve right now. I look at both goals at the weekend. So he says he's addressed the left-hand side, which I'm going to be intrigued to see. What has he actually done? So Noah Okafor, he's clearly not fit. He's a great player, but he's not a fit player right now. So this is something that I'm obviously keeping an eye on. Jack Harrison cannot play. He played 34 times for Everton last season, scoring 1 goal. I mean, I don't see what that's gonna how he's gonna have a big impact at Leeds. You had Manor Solomon available, you had Willie Gnonto available, who we're going to speak about. You had Blaji Ramazani, who was a class act when he ever played, and you had Daniel James. So 4 class wingers that for me are Premier League wingers, all 4 of them last season. Now, do we really think that what we've got now suffices for a Premier League potentially trying to stay in the league, let's say? I don't think so. Jack Harrison lacks quality. We've lost goals from Manor Solomon and assists. We've lost goals and assists from Ramazani when he did play. Always looked energetic, fun to watch, and played with a real drive. And that's all you've got to do. So I noticed against Aston Villa, when you drive at them, when you throw question marks at them to see how good they are, they panic. And that's what Leeds now have to focus on. How can we get round them? How can we, think outside the box? Quite literally at times. But the question goes back to Daniel. How flexible, how much will you change this team at the weekend? Will you bring in Daniel James to start? As soon as he came on against Aston Villa, it was like a new life of energy. It took the onus off the players that had been on the pitch for so long to really have a push at it. And everybody had a lift. I think this 70-minute rule, he's definitely, before the games, he isn't adapting in games. He's just being reactive to substitutes. He's making subs on 70 minutes. Fans are crying out for substitutes. That is absolutely ridiculous. It should never get to that point. So he's pre-planning his subs, in my opinion. He's not being proactive in games. He's not adapting to the game. He's just predicting what subs he could make. Playing Aronson is no good. It's not good for Aronson. He brought out the mental health card with Aronson the weekend. And I've got to say, I think that's a really poor way to go about it. That almost it's the indefensible. Will we talk about the mental health card for Patrick Bamford, who was basically just chucked out the squad and told he had no future there, who was a better player than Brendan Aronson ever will be. Now, I don't want to go in too harsh on Aronson because I know already I've gave him enough constructive criticism. Fans are already giving him constructive criticism and on taking it probably a little bit further than that. But why wouldn't the manager bring him out of the team? He's had one good game this season, which was against West Ham, where somehow he was playing really well. He went forward, he was driving through the middle of the pitch, and I was impressed with him. But I said to my dad after the game, it's one game. That's all we're going to get from him from now against West Ham. So, I'm looking at the bench. Have we got anything on there? Yes is the answer. Willie Gnonto needs to now be coming in. We cannot be letting him go in January. If we let Willie go in January, that's another one of the last creative options that we potentially have within the group that can help us get out of this mess that we find ourselves in. But there's a lot of games that have passed too, which we all know about against Fulham, where it was really poor. And then you find yourself in these precarious positions where Nottingham Forest have beaten you. Oh no, they were below us. We've beaten Wolves and West Ham, which was a big 6 points right there. And anything, if we hadn't have got those 6 points, we will be looking extremely nervy at the table right now. But beating teams around us it's been a failed objective. And this points per game thing, they need to forget about it. They need to focus a run of one, as I always used to say to my team, and try not to think about the rest. But, Anton Stapp being out the weekend, it's a physical presence that we had, tall presence. That's what we needed to fight against these teams. And we won't be able to have that. David Bolt, hi, mate. Nice to see you. Aronson tries more than most. Yeah. And look, I'm not knocking the effort levels, is what I'm going to say. The effort's there, but unfortunately, he runs everywhere but nowhere, is what I've had for Aronson, and that's that's something that for me isn't going to change going into the future. The lad does try. The physical stats, though, aren't good enough. Now, Daniel mentioned in the press conference today that he was really pleased in terms of the physical output, in terms of the running statistics and stuff. But you're not, he's a bit too focused. And I call it German efficiency. Everything's a little bit robotic at times, a little bit predictable from Daniel's teams. He's obviously a good manager. He got 190 points in 2 seasons. I still feel when you look at it, when we're talking about changes, it took him long enough to bring Ian out the goal. And now he's 4th choice. So if that doesn't tell you enough about Daniel's tactics and his man management, or within game management, let's say, being an issue, then I don't know what will. So you've got 30 grand a week sat in the reserves, probably just sat at home doing basic training with the group that isn't going to make an impact. He won't wear a Leeds shirt again now. And he cost us, but I think on a serious note, how many points did Melier cost Leeds last season? I'm going to be going for about 20 points. And I can picture the games already that he'd slipped up in and continued to go with him. There's nothing wrong with change, trying to adapt. If you're showing the fans that you're trying to be a little bit different, play a different style, it doesn't have to be all gung-ho in changing the system too much, but you have to show some sort of mentality to change the group and to be a bit different. And currently, Daniel is not doing that. At the start of the season against Everton, it looked really positive. I was really pleased with how pragmatic the team were playing. But right now, we don't have that. And against Man City coming up, you're looking at the players that are obviously going to be back in the side. They're clearly going for the league this year. So you're gonna have Haaland to deal with. Both fullbacks are pretty decent. I think maybe Mateus Nunes we could attack more at, but Ryan Aït-Nouri on that left side, who's going to be against him? It's going to be Aronson if he doesn't change it, because he's so predictable. And I can't see many overloads coming. We will play very safe, which I'm not expecting us to be coming out against Man City, but against other teams, it's where I'm worrying. Against Nottingham Forest, where we're shipping 3, against a Brighton team that weren't at the best on the day. That's something that nobody really mentions. We overlook the score and think they've battered us on that day. Well, not to my knowledge. I thought the first 25, 30 minutes, Brighton didn't really know where to put themselves. And then obviously Danny Welbeck, a little bit like when Mikel Smith was at Brighton, was, to be honest, he overruled us. He was bossing the defence about. And it's something that we've seen over the season against Burnley, where crosses are coming in and nobody's picking the man up. And then between them, they're almost squabbling to say, well, that wasn't my man. So it's a lack of direction too, which you have to almost take into consideration, which then goes back to the manager. Another point I want to make is about the goalkeeping situation. So Ed Wootton, who Daniel Farke had at Norwich as well, I don't know how good he is. So I'm not seeing much improvement in the goalkeeping area. What are they training? What are they doing? Because we've conceded some really poor set pieces this season, especially from free kicks. The Bournemouth one was just a disaster. The setup of the wall, that should be a training drill that happens near enough every day when they get a chance to do it, because it's an important part of the play. And I don't like conceding from set pieces. Nobody does. It sounds very cliche, if you like, but the drills and the walls it is not working. I mean, Aronson against Bournemouth, completely out of position when he's laid on the floor. I'm not blaming him, because that should be somebody else trying to show him where he should be set up. And then again at the weekend, we've seen it where the goalkeeper is out of position. It's gone down the spine of the net and he's not set his wall up right. He should be next to his post and using that as a waypoint for where the wall should be set up. And Morgan Rogers, well, the wall didn't necessarily jump. I think Rodon didn't jump either, which was a bit disappointing. But I'm not knocking Rodon. He's been a 7 out of 10, if not higher, all season, and he's been the heartbeat of that defence. But you go back to this now, and I don't know if we have got a set piece coach, but the goalkeeper, Perry, it's inexcusable for the level he's played at to be conceding them sort of chances. And then obviously the goal that went in against Aston Villa, they've come out. Daniel Farke's not had them fired up. They should have been ready for for the warning sign coming that they'd had a bad half, Villa, and Leeds did not react to that. And that's what disappointed me the most, if not the whole game, that we weren't switched on and ready to go. And I thought half time, I'd have probably had Noah Okafor off for Willie, because all this about aerial duels, about getting rid of Ramazani, he'd be as efficient, if not better, than what Noah currently was at the weekend, especially. He's a lot fitter, sharper. I'm not going to say about beating men too much. I think Noah deceivingly is very good at that, but it's something that we're clearly not addressing. And each game week that goes by, just feels like, what's the point turning up anymore? Because it's just the same old. He's making my match day feeling and the rest of the supporters very, very glum. It's the same thing every week, and it is just boring me now. David Bolts, Farke seems to be stuck for plan B, but the Premiership is miles away from the Premiership. We haven't spent as much as Sunderland and Forest did last year. Why don't players want to come money at the end of the day? Yeah, and I think, David, you make a fantastic point, mate. I think the money situation, they did say they'd spend every penny till PSR broke, or till the moment we nearly broke it. But at the same time, did they? Because we were going to spend 30 million on the lad that went to Marseille. And I can't think of his name because I'm now on camera, and it's gone foggy in my brain. But he's now gone there, and he's tearing it up for them in the Champions League as well. The problem for me that Leeds have currently got is the recruitment side of it. So if, let's say, PSR or the new VCR, whatever it's coming in next season, is an issue, then okay. So we've spent 30 million. That's a lot, 100 million, on 5 players. Why do we not spend 30 million on 3 players? Get 3 top quality players in. They're all out there. But having said that as well, there was Hamza Igamane at Rangers, who was absolutely tearing it up there. So not just in the Scottish Premiership, which I know was not at the best level, but in the Europa League. He was scoring against Tottenham. He was doing excellent. And I was really impressed by him. Again, Pavel Sulch, he's gone to Lyon as well. He was at Victoria Plaza. Again, in Europe, was doing really well. Very direct. An attacking midfielder, what Leeds lacked since Pablo Hernandez has gone, in my opinion. And this is the best. It's the most concerning thing in my eyes. In terms of the recruitment, is not up to scratch. Adam Underwood was not up to scratch for the job in the first season of the Premier League. Was it really fair? And this is not fair on Adam either, to be put in the position to do the job. He will have accepted it. I'm not knocking that he wouldn't have worked hard, and I'm not going to sit here and just slag Adam off, because it's an extremely difficult job. You have agents to deal with, you have sponsorships to deal with, let alone the fees between both clubs to agree on. But was it good enough? I don't think so. Farke is not using the squad well enough either. There's many times in the season where he's just not adapted to the games, and it's so concerning. Sunderland have spent more because they've been allowed to. The sale of Jack Clark the previous season in the Championship helped them build on what they've got right now. And PSR was a bit more lenient for them. But, it's just something that we're not obviously going to try and push. I personally, do we take a points deduction at this point and just go for it next summer if we stay up, and if things are still tight, because having to sell players and stuff is not going to be feasible for us. We don't have enough assets in the group to be able to sell right now, in my opinion, at premium prices, such as your non-tails. They're not worth 25 million like they once were, because they're not getting played. So if you don't put them on for show and to try and recruit in money to then spend on maybe 1 or 2 more players that are better suited to the squad, what we need right now, then you've no chance. So it's something that Adam and clearly Daniel are going to have to discuss in the future. There's no such thing as PSR. Unfortunately, there won't be next season because it is changing, but right now it is. And we are a club that would just get unstuck with PSR, I think. I think they'd definitely come down on Leeds. We've seen it in the past when we went into administration. We had big issues, obviously, didn't we? So 100 million in debt, and they did us 15 points. I don't know a team, maybe Luton, that got minus 15, that came down on so hard as what they did with Leeds. Eon, you go on, Mitch, press Leeds support. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, there's many, many better Leeds supporters out there than me. And obviously, Leeds United is a huge football club. I just feel like we're constantly let down every season. You know, we've got to the Premier League, and I thought we were going to push on a little bit this year. You know, the aim that Daniel keeps talking about is to finish 17th. If you have that mentality, talking of the table all season, talking about statistics that we've done well, forget it. It's what we're not doing well that needs to now be focused on. And it's really concerning for me. I don't see currently a way out of where we are. And until January comes, that will be the moment to pounce. But again, you're looking at players to bring in. You're looking at maybe the small pool of players. You usually get injured players, as we got with Jean-Kevin Augustin, which ended catastrophically after the lawsuits that went off with that, paying out 21 to 25 million, etc., which was an absolute disaster. And you know, looking ahead at it, it looks. So sorry about that. I believe it's back on. I think I must have pressed the button. I'm not very good technically with these things, so I'm hoping you can hear me okay now. If I can have a thumbs up from anyone, sorry about that. Marona Leeds can do better than this, of course. I still have aspirations to stay in the league. Seems to be going off, guys. So I do apologise about this. I think it could be a charging situation where I'm going to have to look to charge. If it's back on, that's brilliant. If someone can tell me, I do apologise. Like I say, I'm back to it, doing this again. And it's the first time in a while that obviously we've had these chats, and it does say batteries low. So we're going to leave it there, guys, for today. Change it. There we go. So it's back. It should be back on now. Thank you very much for watching. We're gonna keep going with these videos every week. I'm gonna be back, and we're gonna have a really good chat and discussion as the season goes on, because I think there's so many talking points right now at Leeds, and whether or not we can manage to come unscathed through this next period of games that we do have, and that are coming up. It's a big question, and I don't think Leeds are going to find themselves in a great position after this December that's about to go by. But it's about supporting the team and the boys and what we have got. That's the biggest part. I think we have to stay united for now. And in terms of that, what I mean is sticking by Daniel until the board actually come to a decision that it's no longer tenable that he can continue in this role. There's obviously names that have been suggested. Whether or not they're going to come through, Piola, who was at Inter Milan, who was at Fiorentina, that's someone to keep an eye on, because I know Leeds are definitely big admirers of him that I've been told about. But currently, there's nothing too major. A lot of rumours circulating currently, and saying that his time might be coming to an end. I think it's all in the next block of fixtures. I don't see what chance he stands, if I'm honest. And I think if he loses the next three, I don't see him staying much longer. I think the next couple of games will be very difficult for Daniel to come by. But we'll have to wait and see, guys. But thank you ever so much for watching. I hope everybody's enjoyed this stream today. We're going to hopefully have a good result against Manchester City. How much of it we come through it, I don't know. But hopefully we don't get thrashed. I think that's the key. We don't want despondent responses from the players in the upcoming games. It's important and imperative that Leeds manage to come through it and to not be too down and let the goal difference get out of control. Because it could count as a point at the end of the season if we manage to start to turn things around, whether it's with Daniel or with the next manager that possibly comes in. But if it is with another manager, one thing I will say is he needs some games to get used to the squad and to identify what positions we need to bring in, because that's going to be as important. I've had people saying about Daniel, it's all Daniel. He's got all his backroom team. Look, they'll all be paid off. The new manager will have to be already bringing the backroom team. If Leeds have any doubts right now, they will already be looking at the next manager and making sure that his backroom team will be coming with him. To continue to support the first team actions and to make sure we get through these bad ways that we're currently in, conceding goals, shipping them in. I think we're averaging like 2 goals a game going against us. So something has to change fast. Whether it's Daniel or bringing in a new manager, we'll have to wait and see. But having said that, guys, thank you very much for watching. Always a pleasure. And I look forward to the next one. And I hope you can all join me again when we next take the next stream. For now, end of the stream. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure. All the best. And as ever, marching on together. Thank you very much.